Live. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Year of No Gear, episode 16. And today my guest is Ryan Davey. And we're going to, just before we do this, I'm going to see if this works. I managed to get the podcast sting into my recording, so I'm just going to blast this before we start. Welcome to the Year of No Gear podcast. My name's Ash Tucker, and I am a self-confessed guitar gear addict. Over the years, I've bought and sold hundreds of guitars, amps, and pedals, and discovered it related to a decline in my own mental health. With this as my journal, I've resolved to buy nothing for 365 days and monitor my mood, reactions, and habits. My aim is to create a community that shares tips to combat gear acquisition, talk about musicians' mental health, and help us get back to enjoying playing and creation of music. I can't believe that actually worked. It was. I should have done that right at the start when I pressed record, but I didn't do that. So anyway, episode 16. We're here with Ryan Davey. Ryan, thank you, man. Thank you for coming on and having a chat to me today about your gear habits and your new music as well, which is super exciting.
Oh, thanks, man. My pleasure.
No, you're all right.
It's great to be on.
You're all right. Is it? Before I play a little teaser of what this is. I just want to ask, did you do this all during lockdown? This is all music you've created during the lockdown period, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely.
Right.
With sort of home studio recording set up.
Nice.
And my very good buddy, Lewis Carpenter, definitely wouldn't have anything written without him. So.
Yeah. And so in that room that you're in now, right? You did it all there?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, without further ado, let's have a listen to it. So this is, working title is One Night in Egypt by Ryan Davey. Here we go. Pretty epic, man. I'm a big fan of that. That's great. It's almost.
Oh, thanks, man.
It's almost like the sort of thing that I wish I was like. I don't know why, but when I was listening to that, I had a vision of myself atop a pyramid, like on a snowboard or sandboard. That would be. And then the minute the drop happened, I was just like, yeah, I'm driving, just bombing it down
man.
a pyramid on a sandboard. But yeah, that was really cool, man. That was great. So how long have you been working on this record for then? Just since lockdown started? So what would that be, like 6 months?
Yeah, so me and Lewis have been working together for about 2 or 3 years on and off. We've kind of all been pretty busy, and he's a producer, and he does like engineering and recording and songwriting and stuff. So yeah, and then essentially when lockdown sort of hit, I started kind of trying to do demos of songs and ideas that I've always had. And I've used, like on iPhone, you've got a voice recorder.
Mm-hmm.
I've over the past sort of 2 years, documented kind of little riffs and little ideas and all these things. And then literally when lockdown hit, I was like, I need something to sort of distract me from what's going on, because coronavirus definitely kind of got me down a little bit.
Oh man, all of us, man. Yeah, it's proper. Some of it's dead bleak, wasn't it? So yeah,
yeah. And I kind of took a social media break for about 3 to 4 weeks, and it was brilliant, and didn't watch the news and that sort of thing. And I just sat in my bedroom and literally I either practiced. I literally did like demos, and then I was going out for like walks and runs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've managed to do sort of 3 demos in lockdown, which obviously we're still working on. It's still like a work in progress. And then literally every time I got a minute of an idea, I sent it to Lewis. Lewis did his magic on it, like changed the drums or added an idea that he had. And then he sent it back to me, and then I sent it back to him. It was like a ping pong thing.
Nice.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, that's a cool way of doing it. I did a similar thing at the start of lockdown. It's something I at some point I'd like to talk about or have a discussion about with anyone really is it's been really fascinating everybody's peaks and troughs with lockdown, because I don't think I know a single person, and this isn't like, I think we all, when we went into this, because we spend a lot of time on our own practicing and stuff, I think a lot of us sat and thought, well, I'll just buckle down until this is all over, and then I'll come out of this the other side. Great. But what tends to happen is, and it's happened to me too, like you'll have maybe like a few weeks of really, really great progress, and then as you get on, maybe like you'll just have a month where you get nowhere, you know, and you go through these slumps of like being nowhere to getting back on it, you know, with all aspects. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's just human nature. That's just burnout, right?
Absolutely.
We all do it.
Yeah.
But it's been fascinating to see people sort of falling off, getting back on. And I think that's kind of, it's another problem with social media, right? We post our best selves, so everyone looks at these people and thinks they're working all the time. And I actually really respect the people that go, no, I had a couple of months off. I just did it. There was a jazz solo. I was working on a West Montgomery solo months and months ago, and I didn't pick it back up until last week, and now I'm back on it, and we're going that way. So it's really
amazing.
Well, it's just great when you see somebody getting stuff done, because it, you know, the reality is we think, oh, you just sit down, you do it in one go. It's probably not with you. Like you said, it's a case of you do it, you have a break for a few weeks, then you finish it, you know. I
don't know about you as well, but like I kind of I've always struggled to write a complete song by myself. And what it is I can write in what, in my opinion, is a absolute banger of a riff. Like I could write something that's 30 seconds and would make myself and a load of my other friends gurn like crazy, like, oh yeah. But the thing is after that 30 seconds, I'm then lost where to take it.
Yeah. So I have a similar thing in that. So I always find like I'm fighting with the two sides of myself. I'm always fighting between the songwriter side of me and the guitarist side of me, because if I write something that I like the sound of on guitar, it'll entertain my guitar sensibility. But if I try to then write lyrics over it, it's so complicated. And then I remember that from a songwriter's point of view, you know, there's a reason why some of the best songwriters can write songs with 2 or 3 chords. You know, it's a different skill. So you have to kind of switch one off. And producing as well, I have a real issue with that. If I start messing with sounds in Logic, I really I won't finish a song because I won't get that area started. So what I tend to do now is I'll always, if I'm going to write a song, I'll always write it acoustically. And then I build it from there. Always start with the chorus as well. I always do record the chorus first, so that I get that height of like where we're moving to, and then I build everything else around it. But I have to have the core song there or at least a verse and a chorus and a bridge. Do you know what I mean? To get through it.
And I've heard that from Tim Pierce, from the point of view of like how he approaches sessions as well. So like when obviously he's playing on someone's record, and he'll always do the chorus part first because he'll make it sound as big as possible. Yeah. And then everyone knows then where you're going to. Yeah. Whereas like you start on the verse, make that pretty big, and then not be able to make the chorus bigger.
Well, choruses have to get bigger as you go on as well, right? So the third chorus, if it's that crescendo, it needs to be bigger again than that first chorus would be. But you need to know what you're adding to it to make it bigger. You need that in the same way that you need the song, or that I need the song before I finish the recording, as it were. Because if I go in and I just try and record like time by time, it still comes out okay, but I can tell a guitar player has written it. And it's one of my things, I think, in great songwriters. It's why I love Eric Johnson's records so much. It's because I know everyone loves like Cliffs of Dover and the instrumentals, but you listen to something like Lonely in the Night or Highlandrons.
One.
Yeah. And
all that album, man.
And they're just incredible songs. And you can tell you're like, these were just written from a place of being great songs. So they're really great, man. Okay, cool. Well, we're just the quiet. Well, mate, I could talk about this stuff all day, but we're actually here today to talk about gear and all of the habits as such. So thank you again for coming on and having a chat with me about it, because you and me work together, so we do talk about this stuff quite a lot. So it'd be nice. It's going to be nice to have you on talking about it. So let's start with the same question I gave everyone. How is your relationship with buying gear presently?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm a typical guitar player. I love gear, absolutely love it. I think I'm in kind of a place where I've never been in before
Mm.
with gear. So like I now know what I like and what works. So I think I've been playing for about it's got to be going on 11 to 12 years now. And in that sort of time, I've sort of collected gear, bought and sold stuff, and like that. And I think I've now found what really works. Um, and for me, guitar wise, it's generally PRS, which I've got
Okay,
here.
nice.
Love my PRS. PRS is the guitar for me, guitar brand for me. Obviously a Strat or a Tele or I own an Ibanez AZ and they're great as well. But guitar wise, kind of PRS is where it's at. And then amp wise, Victory is kind of my thing. I love Victory amps. I've got a Victory V40, and again, I've kind of went through quite a few amps to kind of get there. Um, and yeah, I'm just a gear addict, man. I
Mm.
just have gas
we,
constantly.
we all have it, man. It's cool that you found through that journey the things that work for you, though. Just a quick note before we carry on, guys. I love seeing. I can see how many people are watching right now, and it's great that we've got some really good numbers. And like, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're in, or you've got a question, or you want to be a part of the conversation, please do drop us a comment on Facebook because we've got a comment window here. We can see what you're talking about, and you could be part of the conversation. If you've got a question you want to ask Ryan or me or both of us, we can answer it and make it part of the conversation. So please do get involved, or just say hi. Just let us know you're here. We normally shout people out, so that's always good fun. Cool. So yeah, that's good that you found your own. You find your own stamp. You know what you kind of dig. Was it guitars, amps, or pedals that you found it the most difficult with?
um, oh, that's a question. Pedals, I've probably found the easiest um, because it's so, in my opinion, it's so easy to buy a pedal on eBay and just whack it up the next week.
Mm.
And I kind of went through this process for quite a while where I initially went to like PMT Bristol and tried out a couple of overdrives and delays and that sort of thing. So I kind of found quite early on roughly what I needed and what I knew I wanted. Um, but yeah, like I think probably amps has been the hardest. The day I bought my Victory, I went to Anderton's, and I went through about 14 to 15 amps to find that. And when I purchased that amp, I still was walking away going, I'm not sure if I've made the right decision here,
Yeah,
which I'm glad I did because the Victory V40 is insane.
that is a great amp. Yeah, I've played that amp, and it's killer. Yeah. It's so when you say it's the hardest, you mean it was the hardest choice to make, or it's the one that you bought, the ones that you buy and sell the most?
Hardest choice to make for sure. Bought and sold the most, definitely pedals.
Yeah.
I've gone through quite a few pedals.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you're telling me. I think people tend to have it. It's common that people go through it with pedals because pedals are like they're the they're the cheapest one, right? And they have that skill. I mean, guitars have this a little bit, but pedals do have that vibe as well, where they can go, well, if you spend money on us, we might replace a guitar that you don't have, or we might replace an amp that you don't
Absolutely.
have, And I think that's definitely where I got into with pedals. I was buying pedals to try and cover up holes in what I thought I needed, um, guitar wise and tone wise and things like that. Because if you only have one amp and one guitar,
Mm.
and you don't have that much money, which not a lot of us do, especially not now. Um, then that's where you go, right? That's kind of the direction you go into.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, I kind of quite early on I got a rough grasp of what I wanted and what I used and what I needed, because I kind of went down the multi effects sort of route. So in the beginning, very very beginning, like first year or two of playing guitar, I had like a Zoom G2 thing, um, and then I gravitated towards kind of the overdrives, distortions, delays, choruses, that sort of thing. And then I upgraded to a Boss ME70,
Okay.
which was actually for me at the time was was cracking because I was in a band and we were doing loads of pub gigs and I needed like different sounds and different sort of effects for different songs and stuff. So I knew straight away on that board that my main sounds were wah, which is cracking for this podcast with you.
Mm. Everyone,
Wah,
everyone loves to make a point of that. I don't like wah pedals. It's fair. I'll take it. A part of making that announcement, I deserve it. It's totally fair enough. But
no, that's all right, man. It's all good. You got to use what you got to use. And yeah, so it was like wah delay and then overdrives, and then I sort of gravitated towards chorus in quite a big way, because I'm a massive 80s fan. All the sounds I've got in my head gravitate towards kind of the like Steve Lukather thing, and kind of 80s kind of shred guitar sort of stuff. So I definitely heard kind of that chorus and like flange type vibe.
sure.
So yeah, so pretty much from that, when I had the Boss ME70, and then I was like, right, I'm gonna go out and buy a pedal board, and I got a pedal train too, and then literally I went, the first three pedals that I bought was a delay, a chorus, and then the Boss BD2 Blues Driver, which I
Yeah.
still own now.
Which is one of my favorites as well. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
And James actually James didn't use. I don't think James Arbery from last week used the Blues Driver that much, but he loves the other one. Like he loves the
OD, yeah.
the OD3 or the OD1 or one of those. But he's a big fan of those.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of this stuff is, we forget, like quite often a lot of the tones we love back in the day were made with these relatively cheap pieces of equipment. You know, it was common.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. There's some banging stuff out there for not a lot of money. And I find it really interesting that you say about the multi-effects thing, because this is a thought I've learned from doing this podcast. I think everybody should try and find a multi-effects that they enjoy. And the one I always tell people to go for, because it's cheap, and it works, and still like massive session guys still use them, is the Line 6 M5.
Absolutely.
And I think you're using an HX Stomp at the minute, right? So
Yeah.
so you're equally a fan.
Yeah, and do you know what? We'll probably get around to talking about this more later on, but I actually wish that almost like I was 12 again now, like with gear, because I actually think I could save myself a lot of money if I had to start again, because the HX effects, which is the Helix just without the amp modeling and whatever, is ridiculous. It's amazing. Like I could literally replace my whole pedal board with a HX effects, 2 drive pedals and a wah.
Yeah.
And I could probably actually have an expression pedal rather than a wah, because I could use the wah in the HX effects. And it's like, and that board would probably cost me between sort of, I know, like £400 to £500, whereas the board I've got now, I've spent years and thousands of pounds.
Thing is though, if you went back and you were 12, and just remembering myself as a 12-year-old, or even as like an 18-year-old, like you always think what you don't have is better. You'll always, even though you have like, you know, a thing that does that does chorus and a thing that does delay and everything, you'll go, oh, but I really want that delay sound or that chorus sound. You almost have to go forward and do it, and then come back, and then to realize that, okay, realistically, and you have to work as well, like and that's kind of something that I want this podcast to do for people. Maybe if you're just a hobbyist or you just play for fun, you know, and you think, oh, but the gigging guys have this stuff, you know, from a perspective of a gigging guy, both of us are, it's negligible the difference that you get, you know. Really the only reason to have like that one effect is because it's, you know, you can't live without it.
Absolutely.
Know, and there are some delays and choruses and things like that for people, but I think for most people it's, you know, multi effects would get them by,
do the job
fine.
100%.
Nice. So are there specific times when you find your buying and selling is worst, like when there's something going on? So I've got here, like if you've got like I find it personally, if I've got deadline, actually less so when I've got deadlines looming, but if I'm struggling in practice, or there's some other stuff going on in my life, like, you know, personal issues, or you know, maybe I didn't get the gig that I'm after or anything like that, that's when I tend to spiral out. Do you find anything like that yourself?
Yeah. So when my diary is quite full, like when I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh, okay, I've got X amount of gigs until the end of the year. Obviously not in COVID, but like normally, I'll sort of sit there and I'll think, well, okay, I've got all these gigs and this piece of equipment will really help me in that way.
Hmm.
So for example, you were selling your mono jewel case
Yeah, yeah.
a little while ago. Um, and I got really fed up with because I take two guitars to every single gig, regardless. I only use one guitar for the night, but I'll always take one as a backup. Um, and I had like, I don't know, 20 or 30 gigs over the next like couple of months coming up. And you were selling your gig bag, and I was like, oh man, that's going to really help me for
Mm.
all the gigs that I've got booked in.
Do you know what?
So
It was so helpful after I sold you that one. I ended up buying another one.
no.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's like it's a learned behavior. I think the reason that I at the time when I sold it to you, I think I had like less guitars and I had a hollow body that I was looking to take out, and unfortunately because of the
Yeah,
size of it, it wouldn't fit in that double case. So it made more sense
yeah.
to kind of get rid. But it's all right. You got one, and then I ended up finding a way back to it, which is totally fine. I've done that a couple of
And
times.
I got a seriously solid deal as well.
They're
Like,
great cases. They're wicked.
yeah. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Is like, for example, mono is one of the brand of the products that I've now discovered really works.
Mm.
And I pretty much won't buy anything else now. If I need a case and I need to take it out on a gig, or I need to fly somewhere, or I need to whatever, I will just stick to mono.
Yeah.
And I have got hard cases because
Oh, they just
I
take up
I
so much space though, don't they? They're just like such a nightmare for, storage and yeah,
absolutely,
I totally
yeah.
get what you're
And
saying.
that's the thing. And I've also bought as well recently. Well, I say recently, like a couple of months ago, I bought the tick as well
Yeah.
to attach to the mono gig bag, and that's changed my life.
Yeah.
Like literally, like now obviously going back to teaching and sort of rehearsals and certain things that I've got going on. I've been taking that mono gig bag out, and I've literally been able to just walk into the venue with like my amp in one hand, my pedal board in my right hand, and then everything on my back.
Yeah.
Whereas normally I have to take an extra rucksack and
Which is
maybe some
handy.
other bits.
Sorry, I cut you off a
Yeah,
little bit there. So you were saying when your diary's full, do you find that's when your spending is worst or like less bad?
worst.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Okay,
that,
that's interesting. I always find when I'm empty, I spend a lot, and then when I'm busy, I kind of get on with it. So that's really interesting.
mm, yeah, definitely. So I think as well, I view it as like when I can see my income coming in as well. Because I think I view teaching as kind of my primary income, and then gigging as kind of the extra.
Mm.
Even though it's still 50-50, kind of they both contribute as much as each other.
They both have benefits though, don't they? Because the gigs tend to be seasonal, especially if you're working in like functions and things like that. Those gigs are totally seasonal or festival season. And
Yeah,
then the beautiful thing about teaching is it's regular. So you'll do probably the same hours, you get the same paycheck every month.
yeah,
That's more stable, and then your gigs on top of it are like if you're saving or you're putting money away. That tends to be the way most people go about it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's those gigs as well that you get like cash in hand, or you were expecting a certain amount of money, and then you turn up and they're like, no, it's double, and you're
Mm,
like, oh, okay, cool.
yeah. Well,
um,
I think cash in hand days might be a bit dead, mate. I got to be honest. I hope not, but we don't. From this
yeah.
point forward, it'll be interesting. Okay, and how do you tell when it's spiraling? Do you know when to sort of sit yourself down and go, okay, you need to slow down, you need to stop? Like, how do you go about that? What's your process?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think when I buy a certain amount of gear, I kind of then reflect and go, right, I've done that. That's going to sort me out for quite a while. And then whatever I want, how much do I actually need it? So it's like the mono jewel case that I bought off you. It was like I didn't need it, but it really helped me.
Mm,
And then I bought a pedal and I like rewired my board and I got one or two of my guitars set up. And I kind of went, right, I've done quite a bit with my money here towards music. I need to stop and just save a little bit and then sort of reevaluate everything.
hmm
Reevaluate, sorry, everything. So yeah, so I think there's a lot of reflection going on when I've done a certain chunk of purchases. But as we all are really, I'm always thinking about the next thing.
Sure. How have you been? How
Um,
have you been during lockdown? Have you been fairly controlled? Have you lost sight of it at some point, or how do you feel about it with the lockdown period?
yeah, so I've tried to be quite sensible, obviously being a full-time self-employed musician.
Hmm.
Um, and I did actually buy a guitar on lockdown, but I sent it back. So I sold two guitars. So I had a 1995 Epiphone Les Paul, sold that. I had a SG, sold that. And then with the money that I accumulated, I really wanted an 80s style shred machine thing.
Hmm.
So I ordered a Charvel online, and I sent it back. I can't order guitars online. It's such
No, it's
a
a
process of going in the shop and feeling it. And
that I think that happens. I think there's some brands that you can feel more comfortable with doing that than others, but I mean, like personally, with the main ones, um, I'll say this: Fender are delightfully consistent. Like
yeah, yeah,
I don't think it probably is, but it's like it's more rare to get a bad Fender guitar than just an okay one. And then when you shop
absolutely.
around, the benefit is you get an incredibly great one. Gibsons, I find I just can't. I wouldn't take that risk. Like
No,
I need to play it and I need to know it feels right and it's great. And then otherwise, it'll and that's irrespective of price tag. I've played expensive ones that are dog shit, and I've
yeah,
played cheap ones that are amazing. Funny enough, your Epiphone was great.
yeah.
I enjoyed that one quite a lot.
Oh man, I was so sad to see them go, but the problem was is that they've been sat in the hard cases for like 3 years or so, and I got them out occasionally to like try and inspire me.
Mm,
Um, and I used to be such a Les Paul person. Like we were having a chat about this the other day. Like I used to literally every player that I was into played a Les Paul back in the day. Like I was such a massive fan of like Gary Moore, Joe Bonamassa, like all these like and Slash to an extent. So I kind of idolized the Les Paul.
mm,
So to sell it the other day, and I was like, I don't have a Les Paul anymore.
yeah.
I was quite sad, but I realized that I was never gonna use it on like a function gig or any like generally any gig unless it's a rock gig.
Well, also, do you find that? So it's funny that you say that thing about idolizing players and idolizing certain guitars, because I've recently like learned in lockdown that I have a similar thing in that when I think of certain tones, I think of certain guitars, I think of certain players. I think we all do, right?
Yeah,
And you think as a musician, if you want to cop that tone, especially when you're starting and you're growing and you're emulating people, you want to get as close as possible and you want to have that thing. Whereas then you realize, or I realized that as I went on, it's like, oh, actually, if I take these things that I've learned, these things that these players learn, and I play them on different guitars, they actually become my stuff.
yeah,
A seasoned professional will probably hear a lick and go, oh, I heard a bit of that in there, or I heard a little bit of that in there. But if I did it on
yeah,
the same guitar, it would be it would feel a bit like a cheap imitation. Whereas when you do it on something different, you really get something that's yours. And that was what allowed me to
yeah.
kind of let go of this thing of like, well, I need to own these instruments because that's what people expect if you're going to cop that sound. And it sounds like as well with the sort of instruments you play, if you're playing licks inspired by those Les Paul guys on your Ibanez guitar or your PRS guitars or anything like that, then that's giving you your own stamp, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And I'm still super inspired by like people like Gary Moore and that sort of thing. But I kind of went in more of a strat direction with people like Andy Timmons and people like Steve Lukather and Eric Johnson. All these players kind of just all fused in a pot.
Yeah.
And then I was starting to find I could get that kind of Les Paul type thing with like, for example, like PRSs or the Ibanez, because it's got a humbucker like in the guitar,
Mm.
but it still wasn't completely like a Les Paul because it obviously the thickness of the guitar,
Mm.
different wood, different tone woods.
Sometimes
So I kind of had that fusion.
there's an ease of playing stuff to it. I mean, again, you and me were chatting about this the other day, and I currently don't own a guitar with humbuckers in it.
Yeah,
If that should happen, if I should want that again, I gotta be honest, I've considered maybe looking at PRS or people
You
like that,
should, man.
just because of the, but not even necessarily because of the, the price tag of it. It's just that, like you have, from my years of playing, I've just learnt that you give me one volume, a master volume and a master tone, and I am dead happy. I will deal with it.
Sorted.
I can totally like get on with it. It's fine. You give me multiple volumes and tones, it's a nightmare. And I've realized as well, like my Les Paul just went the other day, and that was the same thing. Like that neck is, I know I could play that neck. It was fine, but it was so thick and hard to get around on at times that I was like, actually, I need to feel comfortable with the neck of the guitar. And
absolutely,
with PRS being quite a normal, a regular company, and as well them being a company that still, build the quality of their guitars is still up there. Like you pick one up and they're really consistent.
Oh man, yeah.
So I've
100%.
just gone a little bit like, maybe I'll let that. Not yet. Don't panic. No, I haven't. Don't worry. I haven't.
No one have a heart attack.
I haven't given up guitar for dentistry yet. I'm working my way up to it, but it's it's totally something.
What I am going to point out though is that when we were having this conversation, this is to the viewers by the way. When we were having this conversation, right? In my opinion, if you get a PRS, it's sacrilege if you don't get one with Birds, because like Birds is where it's at with the PRSs.
Nah.
We were having this conversation, me and Ash, the other day, and he was just like, no, it's pretty enough. Like I want the dots, and I'm just like,
dots are fine. I was trying to find ones without flame tops as well, because I just need
too pretty.
I need it to work. I don't need a machine. But that's kind of how it goes, I suppose. So how did you find your way to get from, like you said, from buying loads of stuff to coming back to it? I know you just said you have a chat to yourself and you go, right, I've just put all this money into this. But I'm interested in what's your process from getting from the right, I've just bought things, to getting back to the, okay, it's time to make music and create.
That's a really hard question. So like I think I buy the gear for two reasons really. One, to inspire me, and two, to make my life easier. So things like me just in lockdown, I also bought a couple of Strymon pedals as well, and for practicing, and I'm sure for gigging, this is going to inspire me in such a big way versus before, because I've always found if I like the way I sound.
Sorry to pause you there. Can I guess which Strymon pedals you bought?
I think anyway, but
I can't remember if you told me. I'm going to say you bought the Volante and the Big Sky.
Oh, no, way off.
Oh, what? Oh, I was close. Go on.
I bought the Strymon Timeline.
Yeah.
And the Blue Sky, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't that far. I got delay and reverb. I just the wrong ones, but yeah, Blue Sky and Timeline. Yeah, that's all right. I've had those. They're great.
Yeah. No, sorry. I thought you meant Big Sky, not. I did say Big Sky, but Big Sky's the bigger Blue Sky. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, I cut you off there. So you were saying your process from moving back.
Yeah, so I think as well, it depends on what sort of mood I'm in as well. I think when like lockdown hit as well, like I kind of was almost thinking that I've got so much time that I won't normally have. So I tried to really sort of focus on kind of like the songwriting and kind of practicing and trying to get better at my craft and that sort of thing. But I think, it's a tricky one. I think it's just dependent on what mood I'm in. I think I go through phases as well. Like you can see on my guitar stand here, I've got a book on the band Intervals, and then I've got Eric Johnson, and they're two worlds apart. 1 week I'm feeling Eric Johnson, another week I'm feeling kind of Intervals.
Yeah.
Another week I might be really inspired by riffs that I've got and kind of ideas, and then another week I might go, I feel rubbish about my playing, and I've got all these gigs coming up, and I need this piece of equipment.
So it's that I want to kind of delve into a little bit, because I think that's common for a lot of people. I think some, we all have it, and we all have it at varying degrees. Like I will go through some stages of months where I feel relatively good about my playing. I'll also go stages of months where on a day-to-day basis, I will hate my playing and think I can't write or I can't do anything. So what I want to talk to you about and what I want to ask about is when you hit that wall, do you instantly go straight to, well, I'll buy a new piece of equipment to inspire you, or do you sit in it and do you look back and go, okay, well, I can, what can I do to get myself past this hump so that I can get back to playing and creating?
Yeah, so it again, it kind of depends on what mood I'm on. I think I go through stages where I feel, and like you said, like go through stages of like, oh man, I hate my playing. Oh man, I've had 4 gigs that have just been not that great. Like I could have been so much better. We all get it for sure. But I think for me, sometimes I try and slog it out. So like, for example, the other day I was practicing. I did about 2 hours practice, and I wanted to do more. I wanted to try and sort of push it further. So I did about 2 hours, and I started to feel the sort of wall, almost like I wasn't getting anywhere.
Oh man, so that is, I talk a lot to my students about that, because it's once you've done it for years and years and years, and hopefully you'll back me up on this.
Yeah,
You feel it, right? You can feel that point where you're like, there's nothing else can come out of this. Like I'm done. I've hit that like spot where it's like, we need to stop now, and I've spent years getting to that point and pushing against it and going, I need to, no, I can fire through this. Like, this is my wall. And actually what I've learned over the years is what I need to do is stop, put the instrument down, walk away from anywhere between like an hour to coming back the next day, and then it's weird. The brain almost like learns subconsciously how to get you past that hump, and you might not like jump over it, but you'll certainly be like a step closer to beating it by the time you come and pick the instrument back up.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. And I had somebody message me on Instagram the other day that kind of follows my channel and likes a lot of my content and whatever. And I actually ended up having a Skype call with them because they just asked me loads of questions, and I was kind of interested to kind of help them in any way I could. And one thing that I actually did early lockdown is if I start to feel that wall come over me and I'm not progressing in the area that I'm trying to focus on, I've actually wrote out a list of everything I could work on. I'll show you actually here. So I don't really call it a practice routine, even though it says practice routine. But it's kind of like a list of anything that I could work on that I know is going to help me progress.
Right.
So I'll give you a couple of examples. So like I've got metronome workouts. I've got loads of exercises on my computer or the ones that I know that I could work on with metronomes. Obviously improve my inner time and like that. I've got things like improv and the normal stuff. I've got, so obviously on my stand I've got loads of content as well, so I could look through that. Early lockdown I subscribed to Jam Track Central. So I've been learning. Oh yeah, man. And Martin Miller is like one of my favorite modern guitar players, so I've been learning like stuff from him. Andy Wood is absolutely phenomenal as well. He's got that kind of country fusion type thing.
So your way of passing through it is essentially you think of it in areas. So when that fog comes over you, your way of passing through it is you go to another area. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's it.
Yeah. So it's because that essentially allows me to progress still, but not hit the wall and then be like, oh, I can't go any further. I sort of go, well, I can't go any further in that area, but I could go further in other areas.
Sure.
And then sometimes you can go to 3, 4, 5 different areas within the hours that you're practicing in. And you might sort of be like, actually, I'm not getting any further in these areas either.
No.
Which then I go, I'll come back in an hour. I'll come back in a day. I'll come back in a week. Like, I don't generally take a week off. I kind of can't, I guess, with teaching and normally gigging. But yeah, like if I kind of hit a wall, I'll try and progress in another area.
That is interesting.
And it's the same with songwriting as well. I've kind of found if I hit a wall, I've sent something to Lewis, and then Lewis has kind of gone, I'll work my magic over it. He sends it back, and I'm still not feeling anything.
Man, co-writing is such a great thing. Sometimes when I speak to people and they go, I don't co-write, like I just couldn't let my stuff go.
That.
Well, it's not that I don't get it. I understand but I just feel like you're robbing yourself of such a chance to to move your things forward, because I'll quite often be writing on something, and now I'm better at it now. I will message a friend and go, I'm working on this. Can you help me? Like work through it and finish it? And they look at it with a fresh pair of ears. They have no judgment over it. They're not thinking what you're thinking about it. They see it in a completely different way, and they might just give you that thing. They might just put that one little thing in that makes you go, oh, I know where this needs to go. Whereas you would have never found that by yourself.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's so amazing as well when you find the right person to co-write with, or like to even if you find the right producer, for example, it's golden, because for me, Lewis knows exactly what I like. He knows what like, if he'll do something to one of my tracks, he'll know that I'll come in and be like, oh yeah, that's like perfect, you know. But I think what's really good when you kind of get to the point where you're like co-writing with someone is if you can go in with the attitude of like, I don't hold any value to what I've given you, from the point of view of like, so say like I sent something to you, if I had the attitude where you could completely change the track and I'm just going to go with the flow, and obviously say I like that, I don't like that, make those adjustments. The kind of honesty and the ability to say exactly how you feel and that is beautiful.
Yeah.
But also that element of being able to let go of your piece of music, and if they do really change it, accept what's coming back to you.
I think you at the end of the day, if you're going to release it and it's your own thing, you got to be proud of it. But you also have to remember that is like, at the end of the day, like I have it when I co-write for other people. If I do something for them, I'll do what I think will sound good, and they have every freedom to take what I give them and say, this isn't working for me. And there's no drama. Like I'm not angry about that. I'm just like, that's cool. That's just how it goes. I had it with a mate of mine the other day. I sent him something, and I respected it so much, but I sent him quite a sad song that I'm working on, and he was just like, man, I'm like, I want to help you finish this, but just right now with the stuff I'm creating, I'm in quite an optimistic mood. I just don't think I'm in the place to help you with this right now, you know? And I was like, that's totally cool too. If you're not there and you're not in the same vibe, that's fine, you know? I'm going to bring this back to gear a little bit, because I love talking about this stuff, and I think it's all important. But I do want to talk about your home recording kind of thing, because has any of that led you to buy any more gear yourself? Like, has there been a situation where you've been recording, like, have you tried to do it with a minimal setup? Did you go all out? How did you find your way around that? Because I think a lot of people, they really want to record their stuff at home. They're just worried about the financial aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to show you basically my recording setup, because it's kind of here anyway. This is one of the best things I've ever done, right? So I'm going to point this directly, okay? This is one of the best pieces of gear I've ever bought, because it's really allowed me to have freedom. So what this is, just in case anyone doesn't know, this is a Line 6 HX Stomp.
Yeah.
Okay. It's basically, if you've ever seen anyone with a Helix, which is like a big version of this is the smaller brother of it, or sister, whatever way you want to do it. Essentially this has, I don't know, God knows the amount of amps, God knows the amount of cabs.
So you use that's got the amp modeling software in it. So do you just plug that straight into your interface? You don't even use an amp?
I don't even use an amp. I go direct in. This has got, I think, about 300 effects in it. I think I heard the other day. And I can replicate every single amp that I would ever need for any session. If I was doing, I don't know, pop soul to like metal to rock to whatever, I can replicate any amp that I'll ever need. It's got like Marshalls, Fenders, Matchless, Vox, you name it. Hasn't got Victory, unfortunately, but oh well.
You've got the Victory amp anyway, right? So
I've got the Victory amp anyway, and if I need to, I've got mics here. But I've done sessions quite a bit through lockdown. I was doing sessions obviously before lockdown as well, and that was another source of income for me. But I've been doing quite a lot of sessions at home for people where they've sent me a track, and I've gone, okay, cool, I'll record guitar and stuff on it. And every single session I've used this. Never have I gone to the Victory. I've used like probably most effects in this now. And and it's just fantastic. And the way I kind of did it, I did it in a couple of stages. So I originally, probably about a year and a half ago, I invested in some monitors, because I kind of find there's
Oh,
a feel
Ryan,
thing.
just do me one favor. Say hi,
Yeah.
Rich. Say hi, Rich Hillier, because he's in the comments.
Hey, Rich Hillier.
Hey,
How you
man.
doing, man?
Thanks for tuning in. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I invested in some Yamaha monitors. I think they're the HS7s. And the reason why is because I struggle to track when I've got headphones and stuff on.
Yeah.
I've never really got used to it.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I'm kind of like a speaker in the room type guy. Um, so yeah, I originally purchased those because I knew if I didn't have those, I couldn't record from home.
Sure.
For me personally. And then I had an audio interface all this time anyway.
And it's
They're
it's just a Scarlett, right? It's just a Focusrite Scarlett, so they're relatively
Yeah.
inexpensive. They're not too bad.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Like I think brand new Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 is like less than 150 quid.
Yeah.
And if you go on the used market, you could probably get one for like 70 or 80. Like it's not that much. And then literally, yeah. So my setup is, if we go through it all, I got an Apple Mac. I then go into the Focusrite Scarlett, into the Yamahas, and then literally all my recording guitar tones is from the HX Stomp.
That's great.
I have found myself recently for inspiration. So like I was recording on somebody's album the other day, and I found for inspiration I needed a certain sort of reverb sound that I couldn't get from the HX Stomp. It was just kind of, I don't know, it was just this kind of really rich sort of ambient sort of reverb. But I knew I could get it from the Strymon Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Again, confused.
This is the other thing as well. Like plugins have gotten so good.
Oh yeah.
Like I found that I bought a couple of plugins right when lockdown started from a company called Sound Toys. I bought Echo Boy and their plate reverb, and that was exactly the thing for me. Like if I can't get that sound out of my board, I'll just load up that plugin. And also the cool thing is that in Logic, the plugin goes stereo. So, you know, I mean, quite often someone will just mix that out anyway. But for my listening pleasure, I can get it with a plugin and things like that. And they were relatively inexpensive too. So don't shun. If you're looking for a new pedal or anything like that and you want to save some money, go down the plugin route. Check out some plugins, you know.
100%. And if I, again, technology is always moving on and stuff. And I bought this probably, I don't know, about a year ago. And for me, I didn't really have great experience with plugins back then. But now there's like Neural DSP and like STL tones, and I had STL tones back in the day, but they're a lot better now. They've really upgraded their stuff. And if I was going on like a cheap setup, I would 100% get the Scarlett because it's cheap anyway.
I just want to say about that HX Stomp as well. Do you use the legacy effects in there, or do you just use... Okay? So here's the thing: anyone who's like, because I can see the comments now about the HX Stomp going, oh, that's all fine, but it's 300 odd quid or whatever. So it's a lot of stuff in that little box for that money. However, if you're cool with your amp or you find an amp sim that works for you, again, I'm going to come straight back to the Line 6 M5. They're still available. They're less than £100. And Nashville session guys, people like Brent Mason, Tom Bukovac, Kenny Greenberg,
Tim Pierce,
like they're still on their pedal boards, the old ones, the original M5, M13s, things like that. They're cheap, they're inexpensive, and they're great. And they have, you know, I like the sounds just as much. So if you did want to go a cheaper route and you have a way of recording amp, you know, get an amp plug in for not a lot of money and then go the M5. But if you have got the money, the HX Stomp is also a great choice.
Oh yeah, man. And like I was saying earlier, it's like if I was going on a budget, I'd go Neural DSP. Like I wouldn't even worry about the HX Stomp because you can get like a plugin for Neural DSP for less than 100 quid. So like if I was going on a super budget, and I think I could still really achieve what I've got here now with Neural DSP, a Focusrite Scarlett, and a cheap set of Mackeys, because I think a set of Mackie studio monitors are like less than £100.
Yeah.
So I think my studio setup I could get for cheaper for about 300-ish quid. but like I said, when I bought the HX Stomp, there wasn't Neural DSP. Well, Neural DSP was there, but I wasn't really aware of it that much, and it's kind of really taken the market by storm
Yeah, yeah,
recently.
yeah. I've seen a lot of stuff
Um,
about it. I've seen a lot of stuff about it. Nice.
yeah,
Okay, Ryan, dude, I've got another question, which if I've got the time to get in, I will get in with you. But
yeah,
I'm gonna just finish off with. I want to put this one in out there because people love talking about this. So, I'd like you to recommend a rig. So the way this works, if you haven't heard the podcast before, the way this works is I want you to recommend one guitar, one amp, and up to 3 pedals to get your job done. Um, so this can be, you're kind of recommending something to someone whereby they're getting something that will do functions, maybe some recording, maybe an original project and stuff with a little bit of your stamp on it. But again, trying to keep budget in mind slightly. Just trying to something that someone could get started with and fulfill a career like yours with today. With
yeah.
three amps, 3 pedals, 1 guitar, and 1 amp. What would you recommend?
So I'm gonna be awkward. I'm gonna do two. Okay, so I'm gonna do one that's relatively cheap and very, very quickly.
Yeah.
One that's a little bit more money. So if I was going budget as possible, Boss Katanas are freaking wicked. They are amazing, and they're pretty cheap. I think you can get a Boss Katana 50 for, I don't know, less than 150 or whatever.
I think they're about 120 new.
Yeah,
Don't quote me on that.
yeah.
I'm not sure, but they are. Yeah, they're definitely not expensive, and they're loud. So
I did a rehearsal before lockdown at a studio in Bristol.
Pirate.
It's Pirate, that was it. And I walked in and they had a Boss Katana head in it, and it sounded great. I was more than happy with that. So budget rig, Boss Katana. If you want all the effects, I'd probably get a HX Effects. So that obviously you can do that. Equally, you could get a foot switch for the Katana. 100% get a tuner, but then you could have a headstock tuner. So that's kind of up to you.
So
and then,
with the just a quick little point about the Katana as well. If you buy a foot switch, so a couple of people on the podcast know that I talk about the Boss MS3 a lot. And the thing I love about the MS3 is it comes with a computer app whereby you can set up what effects you have in it. The Katana amps have the same software in them. So if you wanted to go in and really decide like what chorus you want, what thing you want, or whatever, you can do that on an app. You can plug the amp into your computer, design that, and then get a foot switch with the amp to do that. So that's also an option.
Yeah, and it's cracking bit of kit. It's wicked. So I'd probably go foot switch, Boss Katana. And then maybe Boss pedals as well, like on a budget. Boss pedals are great. The Digitech stuff is really great as well. You guys were talking about the hardwired stuff.
Yeah.
Back.
James mentioned them. I don't know. Digitech, I think Digitech are still a company, but I remember seeing something about them closing down.
Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah. Oh, hey Ayrton, how's it going? Welcome.
Hey Ayrton, how you doing, man? And then if we were going, and I didn't mention the guitar. So obviously my stamp on it, I'd go PRS every single day. The PRS, I think it's the Korean models. It's like the cheapest.
Yours
SEs.
is an SE, right?
Mine's an SE, but it's no. So mine's Korean. The cheapest ones are Indonesian.
Right.
So they're about £300-400. Whereas mine's just a little bit higher up than that. But I've modded it like crazy. But yeah, so I would probably go Indonesian PRS for about £300-400, Boss pedals, and then like a Katana. If I was going a little bit more expensive, like more expensive rig, I would get a Laney Lionheart. So it's the blue clean Laney.
Okay, I don't know a lot about those.
It's like the clean amp, or I'd go like a Fender amp or something like for about the £500-600 budget. And then pedals, I'd get the HX Effects. My sound I absolutely love is the JHS Andy Timmons. That's like my favorite overdrive pedal. And then my third pedal would probably be a Boss Blues driver because they're just cracking.
They are great. So the Angry driver is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a Marshall in a box kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So you put that into any clean amp and it gives you that kind of vibe of a Marshall, which I would say definitely that's going to work through a Fender amp. I assume that's probably what it was designed for.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what's really funny. I was reflecting on my pedal board the other day, and I was looking at it, and both boards that I've got an Andy Timmons on both of them, and I've got a Blues driver on both of them as well. And what I realised was all of my overdrives are essentially the Marshall sound in a box,
Right.
because I've got obviously a Blues driver which is modelled after that sort of thing. The Andy Timmons, he says in an interview, was based on like a JCM 800 type vibe, which is actually like one of my favourite amps of all time. Um, and then I've got a exotic BB preamp, which is either a Marshall or a Dumble. I'm not 100% sure on that one. Do you know?
Yeah, BB might be Blues Breaker, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
So I would think it's probably it's probably around there. But cool. All
But
right.
the beautiful thing is with that HX effects is that you can run two pedals into the effects loop.
Mm-hmm.
So if you run it into the effects loop of the board, you can turn them on and off as like a MIDI switcher.
Right. Great.
So yeah, that's probably my more expensive rig. And then again, a PRS, like as cheap or as expensive as you want.
Mm. Great, great. So Ryan, we've got about 5 minutes left. So just before we finish up, I just want to ask you, if somebody came to you right now with the question of, I'm not getting anywhere with my like my practice or my career, like nothing's moving forward, like I'm thinking about buying this gear, but I really don't want to buy more gear, but it feels like it's the only thing I kind of can do. Do you have any advice for that person to maybe help them forward with, getting back to playing their practice? I would be interested to know what you would say to somebody who was in that position.
Yeah, so it depends really on what they've got. I think I would always say focus more on your playing than the gear, because I've been in situations where I've been on a gig and like there's been a backline amp, or I've been in situations where someone's gone, please use this or please use that, and the gear hasn't really helped me necessarily through the situation, the gig, or the or whatever I'm doing. So one thing I can't stress enough to people that get stuck in a rut with their playing is to, if you can afford it, try and get a couple of lessons with someone that really inspires you. So, for example, a little while back, Charlie Allen was really local in Bristol. So he's like a session guitar
Yeah,
guy.
I know Charlie.
Absolutely amazing player. Like one of my favorite players I've ever seen live, like locally. And I got a bit stuck in a rut a little while ago. So I had a couple of Skype lessons with him, and it just completely changed my outlook and got me out of that rut.
This is the other thing I want to just say about teachers, is like, don't feel concerned if you contact a teacher that you're going to be committing to months and months and months of lessons. Like most of the guys I know who are at like the pro working level, they quite often they're giving lessons because they've got the time to, but that time won't be there forever. So they'll give you stuff that will keep you, like I quite often say to some students, I'll have them come to me and then I won't want to see them for about 2 weeks or even more. Yep. And if they kind of should slink off and decide, that they haven't got the time anymore, or they haven't got lessons, you're still getting what you need out of that, then that teacher's done that job and they won't be offended by that. Like that's totally fine to just
Absolutely.
go for one or two,
Yeah, and Charlie, within about, we had an hour per lesson, and I think we had 2 or 3. He gave me literally, like, I had to just make notes. I couldn't really even play in the lesson because he gave me so much to think about. And it wasn't overload, by the way. It was just there was so many topics he covered, and it literally, I'm still working on stuff now.
Yeah.
And I think my last lesson was like a year ago, and literally, like, because he fried my brain in such an amazing way. And it also inspired me to sort of go further with my playing. But one thing I find, and I don't know if you find this as well, Ash.
Sorry, mate. I'm ready for this point. But as soon as we're done here, I'm going to have to cut us because we're right up at time. But that's okay. You finish right. Your point, and then we'll call it there.
I don't know if you find this, but when you speak to like people that make a living from music, or I don't know, they're a certain level within their playing, they almost feel like a certain level of embarrassment, like booking a lesson with someone that is a professional as well. Have you ever found that?
Yeah, I've had it. I think I go for certain certain people now and again, and I have that conversation. But yeah, I think I've gotten over that over the years, definitely.
Mm. But I think essentially you shouldn't feel that embarrassment, because the thing is like, it's like there's so many things of your playing that I could take away from you that I've never looked at. Like, I've never looked at some of the stuff that you've looked at. You've never looked at some of the stuff that I've looked at. Every player has something that you can take away from them,
For sure.
um, and put into your own playing. So
Nice. Great. Well,
yeah,
with that, Ryan, I would like to say like massive thanks for coming on, man. We'll have you back again because
my
you've
pleasure.
been a joy to chat to about all this stuff.
Oh,
This has
bless you,
been
man.
this has been great. So thanks guys for checking out Year of No Gear. Remember, on our YouTube channel, this video will have been up on our YouTube channel now. Remember, we got loads of great interviews. We've got a very special interview coming up next week, which I'm gonna talk about maybe later in the week. So keep an eye on the Facebook page for that. And yeah, just keep an eye out. Watch our previous interviews. You can also go to SoundCloud and check out all our previous stuff. And if you think there's somebody we should interview, or you want to be part of the conversation, shoot us a message, comment on this, let us know, let's have a chat, and hopefully we can help you out. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again. Thanks, Ryan.
Cheers. Bye.